yeah, so for me personally, the gambling addiction really sort of highlighted a lot of mental health issues. I don't have a lot of mental health issues, but things like anxiety, complex PTSD from my childhood. My own mum has a lot of struggles with her mental health, and um, again, probably predisposed to mental health stuff. But there's definitely a link between, I would say, all addictions, but definitely gambling addiction and mental health. I've always got to be sort of hyper-stimulated in what I'm doing. Perfect example is my kind of idea of harmony is like I've got spaghetti bolognese boiling over on the cooktop, toddler running around screaming, dog barking. I'm on the phone to my dad and I'm having a conversation. And for me, that's like I'm comfortable there. Like there's a lot going on, but I'm okay there. For my wife, that's absolute chaos. Like she likes silence. She doesn't like multiple sounds all at the same time. But there is, I find a lot of people that struggle with gambling addiction might have that hyper arousal that they're chasing as well. And it's kind of with poker machines or slot machines, where depending on where you're from, it's weird because they kind of like really fulfill that urge of being hyper stimulated, but also being like hypnotized at the same time. It's a really weird kind of concoction, and it's very well designed, the machine. I've spoken about my struggles with my own mental health, being diagnosed with PTSD and, still being in the army at the time. And, it's pretty kind of masculine kind of environment, I suppose. But that I really struggle with that. And I've done a lot of work on that. And I still do struggle with elements of that. But I think the biggest thing that you can do if you feel like you're struggling is just, you hear it all the time, but literally the biggest thing you can do is have a conversation with someone. It can be anyone. I often have I had a lady come up to me the other day. I usually try and take my son to the park on the weekends. It's our time where we can, hang out, and it's good because I'm really busy during the week. A lady come up to me and we talked for like 45 minutes while the kids played, and she just needed someone to talk to. And I mean, I'm not a trained therapist or anything like that. I've done a lot of therapy. I am studying counselling. I want to be a counsellor. I just listened to her, and like that's all she needed. She just needed someone to talk to. So when I mean you can talk to anyone, you can literally fucking talk to anyone. Doesn't mean you need to go and speak to a psychologist or whatever. Just call a mate, whatever. It doesn't matter. Have a conversation. Have an honest conversation. And that's what we've kind of really, one of our fundamental principles with Kickin and Punt is to have that honest conversation about gambling, which led us into our first little, major project, which is a film or a documentary, whatever you want to call it, on a slot or gambling, poker machine related suicide. Gary was, a man aged in his 40s, a builder, a father, a husband, a son, a really good man, a great man, really beautiful man. And he killed himself because of his gambling addiction. He just got to that point where he couldn't really see any other option. I was, contacted by his mum a few years later, and we built a really special relationship. And I'm always looking for opportunities to raise awareness with gambling harm and gambling related suicide. It's really important to me. And I asked her blankly, I'm no bullshit kind of person, and she's a no bullshit kind of person as well. And she said, you can ask me whatever you want. And I mean, how do you ask a mother about her own son's suicide? But we did it, and it was a really humbling but also very, moving thing that we did. And I had an idea of making it into a film because, what happened to Gary and what the venues did to him. And how, just really shows how predatory the industry is, and it's the truth. And it also shows what can happen when you gamble, and what if you let it consume you, it really can consume you. And Gary's story, affected me personally. It was national news when it happened, and I remember it was one of the few things that really shifted the gears within my mind that allowed me to devour my own addiction. And I always said to him, like, I remember watching it on the news, and I said, I'll do something for this man, because what happened to him is fucked. And it happens to so many people, and people don't talk about it because there's that stigma and embarrassment attached to gambling addiction, and the industry really is proactive in keeping that stigma on the people, because obviously they don't want to get those messages to come out, because it's really bad for business. So the documentary is based on Gary. We speak to his mother, we speak to his closest mates, we speak to his sister. There's obviously more people we could have spoken to, but we had a very limited budget of $5,000, which we crowdfunded, and we've never done anything like this before. Like, I'm a Tyler. I'm not a film producer or anything like that. I was fortunate to grow up with some really good people, and a good mate of mine who I hadn't spoken to or been really close to in many years. He does film, and I said, "Do you want to do this with me?" And he said, "Yes, I will." And so we went down to Sydney, and we shot Gary's story, but we also went to the head office of Clubs New South Wales to try and talk to them and have an honest conversation with them, and they wouldn't talk to us. We went to the big venue where Gary killed himself. They wouldn't talk to us. I mean, they surrounded us within 10 minutes with security and everything, and asked us to leave. And it just really showed me how nervous they are about people telling their stories, because the more people that talk, the harder it is for them to contain. And it'll get to a point where they won't be able to contain it. I think they might be at that point now. So the documentary comes out on the 19th of October, which is the first day of Gambling Harm Awareness Week in New South Wales and Victoria in Australia. And we're really looking forward to, people learning about what happened to Gary, but also, just hopefully encouraging other people to have that honest conversation about gambling. And I suppose for me personally, I've lived a life of seeing what happens with mental health through my own mum and others in my family when it's not treated correctly, or just, I've seen it all, really. Like, without going and telling my whole life story, I'm very well versed in mental health issues through my own experiences, but also with other people's experiences. Very well versed in suicide with my own experiences and others' experiences. And the biggest thing that I can say to people, I'll say it again, is have an honest conversation with someone. It can fucking be anyone. If you do that, it'll change something within you. There's no quick fix. There's things, in my opinion, that you have to be very proactive on, and a whole lot of things working in conjunction is what keeps you happy, safe and healthy. And you have to be very vigilant with that. Just like beating your gambling addiction. I can't go sit in a pub right now at 8:30 at night and start drinking beer, because there's a very good chance I'll end up in front of a machine. I have to be vigilant. I'm only going to jump into bed and cuddle my son, because that doesn't hurt me. That makes me feel good about myself. And I'm not down there hurting myself or hurting other people I love. But mental health's a big one. But, I really feel like we're in this new era of where a lot of people are really talking about it now, and a lot more lights, being shed on the whole suite of issues in mental health, PTSD, anxiety, depression, just to name a few, things that I've experienced firsthand. And it's really nice. Like, there's not like this slap you on the shoulder and, "Oh, you'll be right, mate, toughen up," sort of thing. It's like, no, let's talk about it, because that's really all it is to me. Just talk about it, and things can only get better when you talk about it, they can't get any worse. I mean, even if you've done the wrong thing, even if you've broken the law or you've hurt someone or whatever it may be, you talk about it. Yeah, it might be a tough conversation, but I can guarantee you always feel better after having that conversation. That's pretty much all I'll say with the mental health. There's not much more to say than that. And I mean, that's coming from years of therapy and years of lived experience with it. And that's to me, is the most important thing is, again, have that conversation with someone.